Hey guys, so in that last video you saw me working with Sarah. We did some foam rolling and some corrective stretching. But what I didn't show you is a secret little tool that I use in order to get some of the areas that we had some trouble reaching with Sarah, that when I use this, we have a much better time reaching. So what I'm going to do is show you how I use this. It's called a rad roller in order to get into my cervical spine. You know, when you use that foam roller to open up your spine, you kind of stop when you get to a certain point. You really can't go much further and get any kind of relief. Also, working within the solar plexus and the belly, and I'll show you something even cooler to work deep within the visceral cavity, and then also the feet. One of my teachers, Alexander Lowen, once said that we are to learn how to breathe into 3 sets of balls. Often I talk about breathing into your balls. When he talks about the eyeballs, the balls, and the balls of your feet. So what we're doing here is we're freeing up our ability to breathe, to relax, to open up the suboccipitals, the solar plexus, pelvic floor, and the feet, 3 sets of balls. So here we go. The way I like to use this in order to get the upper thoracic and cervical spine and in this area here, you know, sternocleidomastoid, or the muscles in this area, is to lean against a wall. This is how I've been doing it. I can either do it this way, where the spine is in between the 2 balls, but then, which works pretty well up by really well up by the skull. A lot of people carry a ton of stress right back here, and this relaxes it. You feel much better. The other thing I do is move to the side here. You can see, I move up and down, reach the side of my neck. Boom. As opposed to just a, your typical lacrosse ball, this I feel much more stable with the 2 balls together, and it has so much more surface area. The other thing that we like to do is to get into the solar plexus. A lot of people ignore the fact that these muscles here that support your ability to breathe get really tense and tight, especially when you sit a lot. This area is also associated with stress, fear, or anything that suppresses our ability to breathe. So we want to open it up by allowing the ball to sit right in the middle, right below your sternum. Boom. And I'd like to allow it to relax, allow my body to relax right over it, and then trace the bottom of my rib cage by moving side to side here with it. You'd be amazed at how tense those muscles are and how much relief you get. And then the third spot, I've made a video about this once before, about foam rolling the feet, and back then when I made this video, in fact, I used this here. This is what I was using at the time, and it was helpful. Right? I showed you how to roll the foot. It's another area that we kind of ignore. Everybody stretches the legs and the arms, right? Your typical stretches. But opening up the feet is one people ignore. Now that's pretty good. It puts a little pressure right through the middle of my foot. But what I really loved about this is that it trumps that tool any day. This one, just the way it's shaped with the double ball, really gives me so much more relief through the middle of my foot and then up towards the toes also. People are becoming more and more familiar with this type of therapy, using foam rollers, using balls like this, corrective stretching, and things of that nature. So I also have another special guest here for you today, my friend Mike, who's actually the owner of Rad Roller. He sent me this about 2 years ago, and we hadn't met until just now when he found out that I really enjoyed his product. So he decided to come down and show me some other cool tools that his company has recently created to support this type of therapy.
Let's run through it, guys.
Yeah, bro.
So Elliott's showing you some awesome exercises here. If you want to go a step deeper, we got that as well. Rad rollers, great for the feet. If you want to get kind of a little more in-depth, we can use these
Right, these are smaller, so I could get in even smaller crevices there, right?
So everything's color-coded for the density. So that guy, it's a little bit softer.
It is.
It's kind of a warm-up for this little blue one.
So that one's pretty hard. The black is the hardest, or?
That one's very stiff, yeah. Ooh. That's the stiffest one.
Is it really? I like the way this feels because it is a bit mushier.
try the little one. And this one you can really wrap that arch right around the ball.
Wow. Yep.
If you want to go even deeper, we got the little black guy that can really get around to some of those insertion points, like near the big toe.
So these ones are mainly for the feet. You've designed these for the feet.
Mainly for the feet. You can use them in the hands. You can use them, up on the pec and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Anywhere where you got a smaller area that you can't reach with one of the bigger ones.
So this little one, I can really get in between. Tenderfoot. So many of us are tenderfooted because we walk around with them cushions underneath our feet all day long. Our ancestors spent a lot more time walking on uneven surfaces and things of that nature. So we end up with really dysfunctional feet. I don't think most people really consider how dysfunctional our feet
totally
become.
Well, and just to bridge that gap too, when you have a dysfunctional foot, you tend to have a dysfunctional calf.
Yeah.
So let's try this real quick. Let's go right behind that calf there. And we'll see what's going on. So this guy's the Rad Rod. It's a steel core device, so it's not going to noodle around your leg, and it's very thin because these muscles are so thick. You need a small surface area to be able to get in there and kind of dive deep.
Wow. Now I got to admit that I have something similar to this at home, but because of the this is much smaller in diameter, I'm feeling as if it's more directed with the pressure.
You can get right up near the insertion points, or you can just use it as kind of a flushing tool just to pump that tissue of the...
Right.
If you're sore, if you're trying to get rid of the after effects of exercise. We have tools that are more for recovery, and we have tools that are also for... that are more of a corrective nature. So this whole set, that's the point release kit. You might use this before exercise just to kind of get your joints aligned, where you might use that rod or the helix, which is mostly for the back, for post-exercise kind of thing. Recovery tools, right?
Right. So this here, are you putting it in like this, or it looks like a foam roller a little bit, but
you can try this just on your back. So you lay on it just like a rad roller. There's a slot for your spine, and that gentle arc there puts the pressure up into the erectors. So you're really flushing and pumping that tissue, which is the goal. Yeah, so these are tools for leverage. So if you are trying to get into that rotator cuff, you can really come down here. You still have a small surface area, so you can reach the tissue. But you have the leverage to be able to get in there.
All right.
There you go. So come kind of like this. Right. So you're in the direction of that tissue. Strongman type of work, calisthenics, you're going to see a ton of engagement from these muscles, so it's really important to work on.
Yeah, those of you guys who've been watching me train Sarah, you recognize that, of course, we go brute force with a lot of the things we do, but we also spend a lot of time mobilizing, using therapy of this nature, corrective stretching. You showed me what happens to be my favorite of all your tools, which is that one right there.
The Atom.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. Those of you guys who've been watching my videos long enough, you've heard me talking about breathing into your balls and bringing some relief to your pelvic floor, this area here. The psoas gets really tight, and people don't realize just how dysfunctional it is in this particular area. So I've always taught you to use a basketball. The problem with the basketball is it starts to get soft. It's kind of a pain in the ass. I have to rebuy them every once in a while. But this here, although a little bit smaller, it's harder. Right? What do you call this one?
That's the Atom.
The Atom. And the minute I laid on this, I discovered what happens to be, my new favorite tool for releasing the tension in the belly. Ooh.
So the secondary usage of this guy is to create a little more cross-frictional pressure, so you can actually pressure tissue and then engage it more of a cross-frictional direction.
So you showed me the rotator cuff.
So similar to how we were working on that guy right there, you can come down on the rotator cuff, you're coming up, and then you'll pressure that tissue sideways. So it's a different direction on it, it's a different stimulation, and that's kind of what that muscle tissue is looking for is.
Yeah, and earlier I tried this, and I could tell immediately that I had been missing out big time.
So what we're doing in here is we're actually pressuring these mechanoreceptors. So mechanoreceptors are the little receptors in the muscle tissue that literally measure the length of the tissue. When you pressure them, you can stimulate that muscle to open, and then you have a window of engagement where you can move, you can actively stabilize it, and you can recreate that motor pattern in your head. It's not really that we're releasing the tissue, or tearing it, or shearing it. We're just engaging those mechanoreceptors. It's a neurological phenomenon.
That's fascinating. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Oftentimes I talk about how the body is the mind, because most of what we're experiencing physically is totally related to the nervous system. We like to think just, the muscle. What's getting the muscle to work? What's allowing the fascia to do its thing? The mechanoreceptors in the nervous system, correct?
Exactly.
Wonderful stuff, man. So it's killing several birds with one stone. We're doing so much by mobilizing in this particular fashion. Mike, thanks so much for sharing this with us, bro.
Appreciate it, Elliot.
You got it.
Thanks, guys.